So let's now look at the program that we would advise. And I've really talked to you a little bit about the pulmonary, but let's just go back to your tricuspid constitution person who needs heart part 2. They would still probably need olive love. They would also very definitely need Superfit 4 immunity, and probably the specific flower formulas that they would need would be their own personal flower formulas, definition formulas, which would probably be violet, white, number 1 possibly, the blue, the purple ones, HF3, HF4, and quite probably HF2, sorry, not HF2, HF12, liver, and possibly HF15, pancreas. Now here we have an interesting situation, because many people who are dying of COVID are not dying just of COVID, and particularly in America and in England as well, because a lot of people are obese in the world. And they're saying that people who are obese and who carry diabetes are much more likely to die of COVID-19. Here again, this confirms what I'm saying, that we're not dying of COVID-19, we're dying because our health is very poor. So anybody who is grossly overweight, who has high blood pressure, who's on strong medication for heart drugs, blood pressure pills, who has diabetes, who's grossly overweight, you are seriously going to have to look after their heart, the tricuspid valve, heart part 2, as well as the lungs. So that's why olive love is such, the special care olive love is playing such a very vital role. We've discussed the pulmonary valve. That's very simple to understand because this predominantly is lungs. But I want to draw in another concept here, and that is when we were training in Malaysia, we were talking very much about the sensory organs and how each sensory organ is tied up with each quadrant of the heart. And we were referring to the quadrant of the pulmonary valve. The sensory organ was the taste pathway, the gustatory digestive system pathway. Do you remember that, all of you? And we were talking about how if the breathing is impaired and the megakaryocytes in the lungs are impaired, then often the pulmonary valve constitution cannot absorb their food. They tend to lose weight. They're very slender and slim. They have irritable bowel syndrome, irritable bowel conditions, bleeding colitis, colonic problems. And this again is where the megakaryocytes step in as being vitally important to understand. And so that is also incredibly important. That takes us back to our research in Gunung Mulu. It's really, really exciting that we went to Gunung Mulu for a reason. And the research that we did in Gunung Mulu has proven, those 12 of you who came with us, there were 12 of us, we have created a gift for humanity that you could not possibly even start to understand. And it's immensely, immensely exciting. So please bear with me on this. The mitral constitutional person, heart part 4, emotional immunity, somebody who is going through a lot of depression, and this is terribly, terribly complex because it's quite simple that the majority of people I'm caring for, it's either the pulmonary constitution of the breathing, or it's the emotional constitution upper left, which is mitral, and heart part 4. Now, if we go back to the megakaryocytes, they're produced in every single lobe of the lung. You've got 3 on the right, your upper right, and then you've got 2 which are linked with the pulmonary valve, the middle lobe and the inferior lobe, the lower lobe on the right. If there is a problem with the pulmonary valve, COVID-19 and many other viruses as well can penetrate and enter into that part of the lung, which is very, very dangerous. And that is one of the reasons why we have to protect the lungs. And that's why Olive Love has become one of the most important formulas of the special care range. As we well know, it's the master special care range. So let's go back to the upper, the mitral, where you've actually got the large left lobe of the lung. And remember that, in fact, where the third lobe on the right is situated, you have the heart situated on the left. So the left heart and the upper left lobe of the lung are very, very intriguing because they're very much tied up with emotions. So, heart power 4, generally we are using this Olive Love and sometimes Oak Care of the special care range, the heart. Practically always we are needing flower form HF2, HF8 and HF11. These are all mitral flower formulas. And one of the biggest problems that we are seeing with this isolation is massive depression. People are very emotional. They're separated from their loved ones. They're not able to spend time with their children and their grandchildren. It's all this, you know, isolation and loneliness and the cruelty of not being able to cuddle and kiss your friends and your loved ones is having a devastating effect. And remember that our primary role with Phytobiophysics is not to deal with physical issues, it's to support people. We know that we have to support people spiritually and emotionally. The aftermath of this crisis, this man-made, generated, you know, shocking experience in the world will be depression. And frankly speaking, this is why we are sitting here with answers to all these questions in a way that we've never really fully comprehended, because emotional issues will be the key. I'm going to come on to other emotional issues first, but one of them is isolation. The loneliness of isolation is really terrible. So flower formulas are tending to be the mitral flower formulas, of course, flower formula HF2, again, HF8, we practically sold out of. Practically everybody needs HF8 because they're so depressed. It's all right if you've got a garden, but if you're living in a little flat where there's no outdoors and your time outdoors is limited, we've also got something very important to understand here, and that is that it's vital to get a little bit of sunlight, a little bit of sunshine, because what they're actually saying is that sun kills COVID-19, and I do believe that that's true. I think vitamin D is very, 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 very important, a high good quality of vitamin D, high quality, maybe 5,000 international units of vitamin D to support the heart. Coenzyme Q10 is a nutrient, a supplement, which has become almost essential to help the heart. And again, here we have the tree formulas that are very, very important indeed. Possibly tree formula 1, Superfit 1, peak performance, oak, possibly Superfit 4, so not so likely, because it's more likely, for example, that people with heart power 4 need Superfit 5. So again, we still have to protect the lungs behind the heart. So we use either Olive Love and Superfit 5 in some cases. It rather depends on the journey. If the journey is mental, then you're definitely going to need Olive Love and Superfit 5. If the journey is emotional, you're more likely to need either Superfit 1, and I'm going to come on to Superfit 10 in a minute, because actually, well, I'll talk now about Superfit 10. Practically everybody is needing Superfit 10 4 to 5 times a day. Now, the reason for this is because Superfit 10 is injury, it's for the blood platelets, it's for the bruising, but predominantly it's for Wi-Fi and radiation. Now, because of this lockdown, everybody is spending much more time on their computers. And I don't know about what's happening in Malaysia and Hong Kong and Canada, but what we're seeing here is secretly what they're doing while we're all in lockdown is they're putting up all their 5G masts. 5G is now, we're not allowed to talk about 5G. If you put anything up, and I've already had a problem with this, if you put anything up of 5G, you'll get it shut down. You'll just be shut down because we're not allowed to talk about 5G. I don't know if you've noticed that, but it's now been virtually, it's banned to discuss about 5G negatively because they put up the train of satellites into the sky. We saw that actually in the sky about 2 days ago. I don't know if any of you saw that on my Facebook page, the satellite train. And this is all preparation for unleashing 5G. And interestingly enough, we know that Superfit 10 is for spiritual issues. We know it's for the health of the body, the tissues, movement, activity, exercise. And this is another thing that people in lockdown are not able to get out and have fresh air and exercise, which is terrifying, absolutely terrifying, because this is very bad. High levels of Wi-Fi. Please switch your machines off at night. Do not have active Wi-Fi in your flats and your houses at nighttime. Switch it off whenever you can, whenever you're not using it. Don't take your telephones around with you. Switch them off and have times when you're not actually using them.